Welcome to today's episode of The Growth Zone. I am Christian Bartsch. What is the core benefit of listening to this show? Business leaders in corporate and privately held companies gain insights into trends and strategies that provide them with a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Each episode focuses on an area such as marketing, sales, innovation, or funding that is absolutely critical to the growth of companies, whether they are startups or corporate global players, where management needs to juggle the challenges of market entry or knowing how to navigate the uncertainties of disruptive developments. Mind feeding is where clarity evolves and helps solving organizational challenges. For those who listen to the entire episode, I have a special surprise gift. I am working on some great guests that are industry leaders in management, innovation, and marketing. Let's get started on today's episode. So today I'm with Jarrod Haning, and we're going to be talking about the thinking patterns of success. Jarrod, before we get started into our topic, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So my background is I was classically trained. I spent about 20 years in full-time classical music, principal viola with the Philharmonic here in South Carolina. And what some people don't know about classical music is that when you're engaged in music, you're using more different parts of your brain than any other activity. This is well documented with MRI studies. This is a contrast to athletic performance, where the better your body is performing as an athlete, the less of your brain you're using. Your body enters a meditative state, if you will, because it can't afford to share glucose with the brain. That needs to go to the big muscles. But music's the opposite. It's this fireworks show, if you will, just accessing all different parts of your brain at once. And so back in the day, I used to give a series of talks, The Musical Secrets of Leadership or The Musical Secrets of Productivity, where I would teach people how to access different parts of their brain on demand, because it's played a huge role in their sense of momentum and purpose and focus and innovation. And then along that journey, I was at a conference and somebody shared with me the process that I use now. There's only a handful of people in the world that use it. And so now all of that work that I was doing, teaching people how to access different parts of their brain on demand, is still happening. It's just that now we get to start with a map of how your brain is currently being used. And this allows us to accomplish amazing things. So my clients, they normally double their revenue by working half as many hours. And this is just because their brain is effectively thinking at a higher level, learning how to cause things to happen instead of getting wrapped up in the weeds trying to do everything. And so they're just way more efficient once they're thinking at a higher level.
Awesome. That's really interesting. So let's go and start our conversation, especially as the topic is the thinking patterns of success. And there I've got one of the key questions that I've found very interesting to have a conversation about. And that is, why do you claim that being focused on getting things done kills your productivity and checking things off your to-do list lowers your income?
Yes, being focused on getting things done kills your productivity. Yes, being focused on getting things done or checking things off your list at the very least definitely lowers your income. Let's take a look at why. If you are focused on getting things done, and this is a mindset. For me, a mindset is defined as a specific way of thinking, a strategic way of thinking. That strategy, that the more action I take, the more results I get. This is a way of thinking, causes you to fall behind. As a matter of fact, if you've got a big board in your office, you just want to write in big fat letters, if I'm doing the work, I'm falling behind. So notice that whenever you're taking action on something, while you're working on that thing, there's like 27 other things that aren't getting done. This is a bad strategy that can't be solved with stubbornness. Now, when you work on something, the act of doing it, whether you're scheduling or rescheduling or client fulfillment or emailing or whatever you're doing, whatever that task is, the act of doing it doesn't solve the problem of why it needed to be done to start with. So tomorrow, you'll just have to do it again. Email is a great example of this. Whenever you send an email, you get back 1.2 emails. Sending emails just ensures that you're going to have more emails to read tomorrow. Like, it doesn't solve the problem of what caused it to need to be done to start with. So being focused on getting things done is a way of thinking that produces a very short-term, immediate result. You get that hit of dopamine that you check something off your list, but a very harsh long-term consequence that because you're the one who did it today, you're going to be the one doing it tomorrow. You cannot out-hustle this bad strategy. The second thing is, by being focused on checking things off your list, your to-do list, that is, if you'll look at your to-do list, I guarantee you that 9, if not all 10 things on your to-do list could be outsourced for $10 or $15 an hour, provided that person was trained, provided they had the right system, provided they had the right training, provided the task and the system was so simple that they couldn't screw it up. And I mean, like, when you go into the fast food restaurant, if you look back in the kitchen, in that flurry of activity in the kitchen at the fast food restaurant, there's a little placard, a little set of pictures above the cook station. And it is 4 pictures on how to reassemble a frozen cheeseburger. And because the 4 pictures are so obvious, a monkey couldn't screw it up. So if you had the right system and the person was trained on how to do it, 9 out of 10 things on your to-do list could be delegated for $10 or $15 an hour. So what that means is, the more excited you are about checking things off your to-do list, the more of your day you're spending on the lowest revenue producing tasks.
Yes, that actually explains why people should have the standard operating procedures, all this documentation, how to do things. We have that as well in our business, even if it's like, let's say, stuff like, for instance, how you do proper shipping with UPS, DHL, and so on. We've got papers where you can fold them up. It's like let's say, it's a manual with pictures and so on that explains what you do, where you have to click and so on. So, of course, if somebody isn't doing this job 5 times a day, at least, even if they do it just 5 times a month, they know exactly what to do and they can't screw it up, because it shows exactly where to click, what to enter, what information to enter, and what to be aware of, so that they don't make a certain mistake. Because in all these SOPs, you can, of course, write, well, if you do this and this, you need to click here and here, or you have to add this and this, or you have to remember you need to check this and this, or if you're a certain thing of certain weight, you have to do certain things, or you have to package it and so on. We even have manuals for our service partners where we explain what device goes in which kind of box for the shipping and so on, so they know exactly how to do it. And even if they're talking to a customer, they know exactly how to explain it to them, because they see it all pictured. And even if they hand it over to the customer, because they are, for whatever reason, unable to explain it, the customer look at the picture and straight away more or less understands what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't really need that much explanation. And that's, as you say, that's important, of course, to be able to have a standard process and everybody can replicate it, and you have less need to do it yourself. And especially when you think of it, if you have a business that has a high turnover, then you have a problem, because you certainly have to train everybody again and again on this job that you're outsourcing. And even if you've outsourced it to a company and they have a high turnover, you have to retrain those people so that they don't mess it up. But if you have your training materials in a way that at least they can learn it by themselves and understand it, it's foolproof, or as you say, you can let a monkey do it, then the only thing is, where can you hire those monkeys? Because they would cost less.
Yes. So it's a way of thinking. The trade-off is, the way of thinking makes a lot of sense. it makes sense that the more action you take, the more results you get. It makes sense that massive action is massive results. And because it makes so much sense, it's nearly impossible to see that taking action isn't moving the ball forward. Because whenever you check something off your to-do list, you get this immediate dopamine rush. It feels like you got something done. It feels so good. And the trap is that whenever you spend time doing something that actually makes a difference, designing that system, designing the standard operating procedure, documenting the process, training somebody, going back and following up on that training to be sure that nothing was missed, that feels like you're not getting anything done because you didn't get to check anything off your list. And that's the trap.
Yes, because of course it takes work, and you think, oh, why, I can do it myself faster because you've done it 20 times, you know how to do it. But yeah, that's the thing. It's so good if you do these things ahead, because later on you just need to replicate them, adapt them, your manuals as well, if you're doing something different. As an example, you have a UPS manual, and you do the same thing for your DHL or FedEx or whatever, and you just need to replace the screens and replace some sheets, of course, because they're different depending on the carrier. And the same thing would be if you're exporting something, or you're telling your people how to package, for instance, let's say how you want your gifts that you send to a customer or to a potential buyer. You want to send them some kind of marketing information. You want them to do it the correct way. What has to be added, the catalog, the letter, maybe what kind of paper. Am I sending a letter to a lady? Then I want to have a different color, maybe of envelope. Am I sending it to a guy? Different color. Do I know the guy is a fan of flying? I'll add something different. I use a different stamp. I know the person is a fan of, let's say, Ferrari. I'll use a stamp where there's a Ferrari on it.
Yes.
But
yes.
Of course, you yourself, you'll do that, but then the guy has to be told. You think, well, wouldn't that be logical? It would be logical, but they need to be told because they're not necessarily thinking as far as we both are doing it in our daily actions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's a good insight. I wish more people had that.
Yeah. So looking at of my questions I've got written down here for you, the next thing would be, what's the most common thinking blind spot you see when going through a person's MindScan review? And what is a MindScan?
Yeah. So most common thinking pattern, I would probably say, is the idea that more action equals more results. It does work on some level. I mean, technically, yes, you are getting some results, but it doesn't scale. You can't scale effort. It's great for 0 to 100,000 startup scramble. It's great for that. But between 100,000 and a million, no go. You just can't hustle and scale that. It takes a different way of thinking. That's probably the most common one I see. But there's lots of different patterns. There's people that overvalue systems and planning. There's people that overvalue relationships. There's people that try to value all three of those things equally. That has its own set of pitfalls. There's people that aren't as clear on their sweet spot as they could be. And they're consequently running blind, but they're not aware of it. So whenever they hit these obstacles in life, like don't have enough time or don't have enough money, it can be frustrating because it feels on their end that they're doing everything they know to do. It's just that, well, they weren't aware that that was a blind spot in their thinking pattern. A blind spot, after all, you can't see it. You can't see your own blind spot. You can only run into things and realize you have one. So that's very frustrating. That would probably be one of the most common ones, though, overvaluing action. A blind spot does occur when we overvalue or undervalue something. And pretty much the only way you can see what that looks like is just to have your thinking patterns mapped out, because that's where you get to see the real opportunities for growth in your mindset and see how that mindset growth affects your business growth. You know that you have blind spots anytime you have repetitive patterns in your life. don't have enough time, don't have enough money, don't have the right relationships. You just keep getting caught in the same cycle. That indicates that there's a blind spot in the way your mind is trying to solve that problem. But you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. And so you cannot see your own blind spot. You can only recognize that you have a blind spot. In order to see where it is so that we can get rid of it or map a path around it, we got to get your thinking patterns mapped out. The process I use for that is the Nobel Nominated MindScan. MindScan, I know, might sound scary. It's not a medical device, though. It's a way of mapping how your mind, not your brain, but how your mind solves problems. This was discovered in the 1950s by a guy named Robert S. Hartman. And it's really unique. I say that many people, when they think of assessments, they think of things like DISC or Myers-Briggs. The problem with those types of assessments is that they're question-based. And because you're answering questions, your subconscious is gaming the system, trying to guess what answer the test is looking for, or thinking it knows what answer the test is looking for and trying to present itself in a certain light, kind of a, well, I'm working on being better at this, so I'm going to put this answer down. And so what you end up with is self-reporting error. And that would be like if you went to see the doctor for help and the doctor walked into your room holding somebody else's test results. That's what self-reporting error is like. Another danger of those types of assessments is that they tend to label. And as soon as they label, you're now stuck in the box. And this is why people say, oh, well, see, I can't do that because I'm a high C, or I can't do that because I'm an INFJ. Like they now begin to identify with that. So it almost cements in the blind spots. And then lastly, they provide information that's interesting but not helpful. So if they say, hey, you have these traits and 25% of the population also has these traits, that's interesting but not helpful. In the same way that if you went to see a doctor and the doctor said, hey, you have this condition and 25% of the population also has this condition, it's interesting, but it's not helpful. Helpful is what side of that 25% line are you? And that's what the MindScan does differently. It is a scientific assessment of you, the individual, without a label. And because of that, the map that it creates of your thinking patterns is as unique as you are. And that's what gives us the total clarity on what's going to move your business forward the most tomorrow. You don't even have to be a client of mine to try the MindScan. You just try it for yourself and see what you think.
And where can you try that MindScan?
As soon as I discovered this, it was like candy and I wanted to share it with the world. So I put it up on my website. Just hop over to mindsetperformance.co. You can download a sample of the MindScan, see if you like it. You can learn more about it, read more about it. You can even try it for yourself. Mindsetperformance.co.
.co. Ah, yeah. Cool. That sounds definitely interesting. I'll definitely try it as well out. Thinking of that, just based on doing hundreds of mind scans, what's your advice on, well, would you actually give a struggling entrepreneur without seeing their personal mind scan? What comes to your mind in that situation?
Without seeing their mind scan, I would say spend more time in your sweet spot. So you can't make a difference in your clumsy. You have to be in your sweet spot. And the problem is we tend to go through our day with these grown-up sounding thoughts in our head. Like, well, that's unrealistic. You can't just do that all day. You have bills to pay. But the problem is all that other stuff should be delegated for $10 or $15 an hour. And that other stuff isn't your sweet spot. Remember, you can't make a difference in your clumsy. You got to be in your genius. We had a guy, he was making $400,000 a year. At that level, you would think this is a very high performing individual. Like, what are we going to show him that he doesn't know? He takes the MindScan. He saw something about the way he was handling his sweet spot. and he was completely undervaluing it. And so what he did is, seeing that as an opportunity for growth, he tried honoring it when he built his day. So in the morning, he would honor his sweet spot by putting that on the calendar first, and then building all the other activities around it. And when he put it on the calendar, he would also protect it to make sure things wouldn't steal that time away, that he really was spending time in his sweet spot. But because your sweet spot is the thing you do the best, enjoy the most, and brings the most value to your company, now he's in a situation where effectively, by spending more time in a sweet spot, his company is growing at a rate that it wouldn't normally grow. So what ended up happening was, over the next year and a half, he went from 400,000 to 1.2 million. And that's just because he's spending more time in his genius and less time in his clumsy. For consultants and one-on-one service providers, like financial planners, lawyers, that kind of thing, many times when they run the numbers on their business and they notice that the clients that they enjoyed the most, the clients that spend the most money with them, they met those clients doing something like playing golf or fishing or hunting or whatever. And it just so happens that these individuals, the lawyer or the financial planner, their sweet spot is meeting people and connecting. They're really great at relationships. They're really great at building rapport. So when they realize that they enjoy meeting people the most, they're the best at it. And when they meet people playing golf or fishing or hunting or whatever it is, those tend to be the highest value clients for their business. Well, now they just schedule their week to play golf 20 hours a week. And it sounds like, oh gosh, that's stupid. That's irresponsible. I would love to play golf 20 hours a week. They're doing it because that brings the most value to their business. And this is just an example of the power of getting clear on your sweet spot, knowing how to calculate it, and honoring it by making sure you're spending time doing that every day.
That definitely makes sense, because when you look at it, most of the entrepreneurs, they have certain activities in their leisure time, whether they're flying, they're sailing, or they're doing other kind of sports or golfing or whatever. They, of course, use that to build relationships as well at the same time, because they are together with other people who are like-minded. They enjoy the same activities. Whether you're flying and talking to others about flying, or sailing, you're talking to other people who enjoy sailing, you're on a common ground, you have sympathy, you're on a wave. And then it's much easier eventually to build trust as well with them. And they say, oh, you said that you do this and this. Can you help me in my business? I've got a problem. I think maybe I need your advice. And boom, you've got your client, of course.
Yes.
But it's like going to a networking event and you're trying to get somebody to buy your service, and they don't even know you, don't even trust you. And yes, they might need your product and your service, but they don't know you.
Yeah.
And that's then difficult. And as you say, he goes 20 hours golfing a week. I'm sure that actually his golfing fees and so on, they'll be next to nothing compared to the revenue that he's generating. Because he doesn't need to do the work of whatever he's selling, but he has to get them convinced that they can trust him and his business to do whatever they want.
Yes. I have a friend of mine, actually one of the guys that I interviewed for my book, and his business model is going to business conferences. So he has a $30,000 product that he sells on a 2-page flyer. That's it. Just a 2-page flyer. 1 page of testimonials, another page of the breakdown of the service. And he just takes that 2-page flyers to business events. And he spends about $25,000 a year going to business events. But his product is a $30,000 product. And so every year he gets like anywhere from 10 to 20 new clients at $30,000 a piece, doing what he loves doing. Talking about business, meeting people at events.
Yes, exactly. It depends very much where you're really good at. As you said, your sweet spot, it has to match. And for him, obviously, it matches when you think of it 30,000 product, of course, if he gets a year 30 or 50 or 100 or 200 clients just by doing that, that's the best thing, of course. It's more challenging when we think of it in a situation like now, where people who are really good at, there are lots of people who are really good at selling from stage. They need to have the stage they love, and they have this adrenaline rush when they're on stage and getting people actually excited and they go and buy from the back and so on. There are many of these people in that area. And there are some maybe not necessarily so good selling on stage, but there may be somewhere in the back networking, like your friend there. He'll be mostly maybe networking because at the back he's got plenty of time to chat with the people, get to know them, find out what's maybe there's an opportunity and pitch the product to the right person instead of wasting his energy on somebody who actually doesn't need his product and will never need it or can't even use it. I don't know what the product is, but it must be definitely a good thing if he can sell it at that.
Yes. Yes. Good stuff.
That's really good. So, as you said on the website, you can do then this test, this MindScan and so on. So, is it this a questionnaire, is a software, how does it work then actually, that MindScan?
So what it does is it has you rank things that you value according to their goodness or their badness. It's kind of a moral assessment. It's looking at how you define what is good in the world or how you define what is bad in the world. For example, it might ask you to pick which one of these is better. What is more good, a baby or a technical improvement? Well, in your mind, you might say, both of those are good. Oh, okay, yes, but for you, one of them is slightly more good. Which one is slightly more good? And so you pick one that's slightly more good. Well, by the time you rank 18 of these, we're getting to sorting through really fine gradients of slightly better, slightly worse. What is more bad in the world? Is it slavery or is it blowing up an airliner in flight? Well, they're both bad. Yes, but for you, one of them is slightly more bad. And on the surface, it looks like you're just ranking good and bad. But the types of things that you're ranking are, in fact, very different from each other. And that is the beauty of this type of assessment. Because of the way that they're different and what that reveals about your thinking, it's nearly impossible for you to see what it's sorting through. That would be kind of like looking at binary code in a computer. It's just ones and zeros. And when you're at the level of ones and zeros, it's nearly impossible for you to see what the software code is actually doing.
That's true. And even there, people can obfuscate and create inconsistencies that doesn't really look what it is supposed to be. But when you think of it, the mind, it's I'm already thinking about that question. I'm thinking, what's worse? What's worse? And usually, when you think of the classical tests, of course, you eventually start thinking, okay, what do they expect you to answer if you want to be rated at certain things or you have certain skills and so on, and you're kind of trying to play the game. But with that, you're thinking, okay, it makes you really think. It really think because, of course, both are not exactly really good, but it depends really very, very much. And it depends as well in the cultures, even where in different cultures, different things are maybe seen differently as well.
Yes.
And as recently I was watching a recording from a TEDx speech that was done a few years ago by someone who was talking about culture and influence of languages to our thinking, which I found really interesting because I had recently a conversation with an acquaintance who is a Russian diplomat, and he as well said it's so different when you have certain situations because he is used to speaking Russian, English, and German at the same time. And for myself, it's a similar thing. I grew up as a child. I spoke 3 languages at the same time, and his son is doing that now as well. which is, of course, with different languages. But since he knows all these three languages, he can understand his son, but other people not. And the same thing was when I was visiting my grandparents in England. Of course, the milkman came and asked my grandmother, "Is the boy English?" Because I was speaking English, Spanish, and German in one sentence. So it sounded strange. It could have been Welsh. Not really. Could have been Scottish, but strange. English, not really. And you couldn't say it was some kind of accent, because it wasn't the accent. It was totally different words that somehow didn't match together, but it was the sentence. If you know the three languages, you understand it. And when I was sometimes going with a friend of mine to the cinema, and we have some cinemas where you can listen to different to movies in different languages, and since we both spoke the three languages, one day we came out of the cinema and I asked him, "Do you actually remember which language the movie was?" "I have no clue." And he looked at me and thought, and that's the thing. In that TEDx speech, they said clearly, actually, your thinking path is based on the culture. And for instance, certain words and certain languages, they are female. And in a different language, they are male. So of course, as well, when you associate certain words, you describe them differently. For instance, a bridge in Spanish is associated with different words of different kind of gender. And the same bridge is in a German language associated with other kind of words which do not match. It's like describing something as a beautiful thing, and other language is describing something as powerful and engineering-wise or so. And it doesn't match together. And then if you look at different things, of course, for instance, even if you look just at the Spanish language, those who are using the same meaning of a word, but in a different context. For instance, in Spain, the word for car is different than the same word for a car in South America. It's a different word, but its meaning is the same thing. So that's already a changes in a way, and as well the way people as well discuss stuff in South America are different than Spain. And when then we look at how they might as well then value certain questions in MindScan might be different, because maybe their culture, the language, as well influences them as well, based as well on the values that are set in the culture where they've grown up. And if you've grown up in different cultures, as you maybe have moved different places, especially when you think, for instance, kids that grow up in military families or diplomatic families, they maybe move every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and over the time, the father has a career or the mother has a career in military or diplomats or as in a multinational corporation. You go to different countries, different languages, and you as a kid, eventually you grow up, have a different mindset that doesn't fit to the standard path. And that's why I can think that a mind scan might be very beneficial, because then you actually understand how you tick and not how somebody else ticks based on some standard procedure on that. How do you think actually that a mind scan would actually perform based on somebody who is totally different to standard education, who has been in different cultures, different languages, has a very complex mindset?
So the areas that it's sort of measuring are relationships, which is empathy, emotion. Emotion occurs in all cultures. Like all cultures have some people in those cultures that are good at making friends, and some people in those cultures that just kind of have a hard time making friends. It measures the value that you place on action. How important is it to solve problems by doing things? Well, all cultures have people in them that are go-getters and people in them that just kind of sit back and watch. It measures how your mind thinks about structure and process and efficiency. All cultures have people that make great engineers and people that probably should not be writing computer code. What I would say, though, is you're absolutely right about the role that language plays. Man, I've got a lot to talk about there. I love when we talk about culture and language. So for anybody who's looking at what's happening when somebody takes the MindScan and they see their thinking patterns mapped out. They see what's possible in their life, and they look at the testimonials and the clients and everyone who's gone before them, who 30% of the people are in tears because they find it so emotionally meaningful, empowering, and confirming. But then the people that take their results and actually apply them, and as you know, people who implement are in the minority. The people who actually implement what it shows is their greatest possibility, those people go on to double their business revenue by purposely working half as many hours just because their mind is thinking at a higher level. So if you see that and you're in a business cycle where you're tired of hitting not enough time, not enough money, not enough support, if you're tired of that, then I would just say, take the MindScan, be skeptical, go in saying this isn't going to work for me, and I'm going to prove that it's not going to work for me, and I'm going to prove that I'm different and my culture is different. I'm going to prove that. Go in and be right about all that stuff. You get a money back guarantee anyways. Just try it for yourself and see if you think it is a good fit for your situation. If your situation isn't working as it is, you got nothing to lose.
Sounds definitely good. So you mentioned as well that book that you've got. Where can people actually get that book?
So right now the book is in the process of going to the printers. As you know, there are so many levels of proofreading and typesetting and all that. So we're in that process right now. But you can go to my website, mindsetperformance.co, and you can get the executive summary. You can just download all the exercises and the thinking patterns and all that mindset work. Just download it right away.
Awesome. So it was great having you here on the show, and I'm sure in future we'll be talking about other topics about mindset and MindScan and all the different things that we can use as well to improve not only our income, but as well our business and the performance of others who are working for us.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Growth Zone with Christian Bartsch. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review or rating here on iTunes or on podchaser.com. If you found the content helpful, then share it on social media. I would like to invite you to follow our show so that you don't miss the upcoming interviews with leaders in the market. Simply visit the website follow.prmediareach.com. I will be adding the link also to the description of this episode so that you just need to click on that link. For those of you who are listening and signing up to follow the show, I have reserved a free copy of the ultimate guide on content marketing. This is the strategy that got me top corporate clients like McDonald's, Linde, Hewlett-Packard, Deutsche Bank, Volvo, and many others. That strategy has been working for over 10 years. It also got me contracts with police, transport authorities, military, and several universities, and even leading research institutes. For sure, it also worked wonders as it got me many small, medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises as clients. And that even included international clients from all around the world. The link to sign up for our free broadcasting service and the guide is follow.prmediareach.com. That will give you access to the most recent version of my ultimate guide on content marketing. You can follow me as well on Twitter by using the Twitter handle CAPBartsch. That's spelled Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel. Yes, that is CAPBartsch. Charlie, Alpha, Papa, Bravo, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Sierra, Charlie, Hotel.